And a very good morning to you. It's definitely a double espresso morning for us here on OTBAM. It's only a Tuesday morning, and I think we've just witnessed one of the busiest Mondays in Irish sports news history.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I would, like if you include.
That was what happened yesterday.
How many times have you practiced that?
Never.
It was good. It was good. It really did capture the sense of what happened yesterday. Like
I'm a bit shell shocked.
What was the biggest story yesterday?
I think Man United being beaten 3-0 and José's press conference afterwards is like a global phenomenon. I think the Declan Rice story is like, it gets to the heart of everything that's wrong with world football. But I also think that the Mayo situation is this glorious clusterfuck that is exclusive to Ireland. And I like, there is no internet meme that I hate more than the "hold my beer" internet meme. But definitely, looking at it, you were thinking the Mayo County Board were like, Jesus, the Women's County Board are getting fair somebody taking all of our attention, aren't they? Hold my beer, lads. And then suddenly it's like, well, Rochford, we don't like your two selectors. What do you think of that now, Mr. Rochford? And he's like, well, not very much. See you later, lads. Off we go. It's absolutely the perfect GAA story where a manager does really, really well, and while things are going okay for him, he has the full support of everybody. But as soon as there's a little speed wobble, it's like, well, what have you done for us lately, buddy?
Yeah, and lately being literally 12 months ago when they might have beaten Dublin to win the All-Ireland Football Championship.
The greatest football team of all time that they nearly beat.
Yeah.
Like, they're right up there, and everybody says this Mayo team are like the only team who've ever got close to them, who are actually driving that Dublin team on.
And it wasn't a fluke. They did it time and time again. They did it on 3 separate occasions under Stephen Rochford, twice within the space of a couple of weeks 2 years ago, and on one occasion last year. They did it multiple times, of course, under James Horn as well, but you felt under Rochford there was a continuation of what Horn and, to a certain extent, what Holmes and Kennelly had done as well.
Not really. I think the Holmes and Kennelly thing, the team got blitzed in the last 15 minutes.
They came quite close as well. But the thing is, there was a sense that we're getting to the end here. There's just that little bit of continuity that's required to finally see this thing over the line if we can get there. And maybe the early summer off is exactly what they needed. But that early summer off is only any good to you if you've got the same management team going into the next year. If you're like, right, okay, this is all part of the plan, or this can become part of the plan, the fact that we're out of the championship in July.
Can I make one point that I made, and this is not being wise after the fact, but this was in the middle of the Newbridge or Nowhere saga. I did point out that the Mayo County Board should come out now and get out ahead of Croke Park and get out ahead of all the meetings and say, we'll absolutely play Newbridge, and take the sting out of the emotion that Kildare suddenly had to drive them on. Like, there was no risk for the Mayo County Board to come out on the Monday or whatever it was that week and say, that's a great idea. We fully understand and appreciate that other county boards around the country have the desire to play their matches at home, and we'll play you guys anywhere. Like, we fully back our team to play absolutely anywhere. Instead, they sat on their hands and they did nothing, and they said, well, we'll do what we're told. I mean, obviously we want to play the game in Croke Park because we know we'll kill you in Croke Park.
Yeah.
And if they'd done that, the Newbridge or Nowhere thing wouldn't have taken off. The county board would have backed their own players. Everybody would have seen what they were doing, and it would have taken the whole sting and the emotion out of the occasion. Maybe Kildare still would have won, I don't know. But it certainly seemed like Kildare rolled their chips into the middle of the table and got the benefit of that bounce in confidence in team morale. So it never felt to me like this Mayo County Board knew the right course of action, and it still doesn't feel like they know the right course of action, imposing that ridiculous deadline of August 31st for him to have his backroom team in place. It's like, either you expect the man who took you to a whisker of winning the All-Ireland to be able to continue managing the team, or you don't. And if you don't, have the balls to say, no, actually, what you did this year wasn't good enough, and we're getting rid of you. And we're saying that that 2-year contract that we gave you last year after you reached the All-Ireland final and lost by 1 score, that was all bollocks, sorry. Instead, it's this kind of insidious pretend, oh, we just don't like the guys that you're picking, we're going to have a chat about that.
Well, is there truth in that? It may also be insidious that they don't like the 2 guys, Peter Ford and Shane Conway, the 2 men that were supposedly named on Sunday evening, not ratified, as Colin Keys pointed out on the show last night, but they were named on Sunday night. It is very curious that 24 hours later, they're all gone after those 2 guys have been named. What does the county board have against those 2 men? What happened over the course of those 24 hours that made Stephen Rochford decide that he didn't have the backing of the county board? I would love to know what that exact exchange was. The common theme here, of course, is that those 2 men are clubmen of the Brafey club.
Well, they're managing Brafey.
like, what does Aidan O'Shea think of all this morning? Well, like, why is that the common theme here? Why, like, I'm sure there might be something else here, but I wouldn't be overly surprised if there isn't.
We were booking a show for this Thursday, which is the All-Ireland Football Final preview show. It's on in Croke Park, and we were putting together a guest list over the last while, and a couple of weeks back there was a sense, this is a bit Mayo, this is definitely a bit Mayo heavy, you know. You look at it there and you've got James Horan, you've got Cora Staunton, you've got Aidan O'Shea. Now all of a sudden it looks like, well, it's almost like we knew what was going to happen. So we've got James Horan, we've got Cora Staunton, we've got Aidan O'Shea, we also have Jim McGuinness, Peter Canavan and Keith Barr, and Kieran McGeeney. It's like, the perfect lineup for the week when Mayo football implodes of an All-Ireland football final involving the Dubs going for 4 in a row against Tyrone. You could not have scripted a better lineup.
The thing is now, in this managerial vacancy, Jim McGuinness is like the Carlo Ancelotti or the José Mourinho without a job. But who's the Sam Allardyce without a job at the moment? Who's the person that could be the shite replacement for Stephen Rochford? Because there has to be somebody.
Well, I mean, there are loads, but now that you've called them shite, I'm not going to name them. I think that David Brady did manage, in flashback form, to rule out Jim McGuinness from this job a while back. Have a look.
Do you... It's like everything else. I was told that Jim McGuinness was down in Limerick. I know for a fact now he wasn't.
You've just had someone text you?
Yeah. That's put to bed there now, boys. And this guy wasn't telling lies.
So what is the benefit of trying to get the story out there?
I don't know.
That's Nathan's laughter in the background.
I can categorically say no, and this is not lies. Stephen Rochford has never spoken to Jim McGuinness in his life.
Maybe this is a bit like Kaiser Soze from Usual Suspects. They're trying to build up this legend now and put the fear into the Dubs.
Never spoken to him. Is like Martin Kearney said it last night.
Yeah.
There you go. Brady was in great form last night as well, so if you haven't heard it, you can get that on our GAA podcast stream. But Nathan's laughter, I had forgotten about it. Nathan should always be in the box just as your kind of go-to person. Is that joke funny or not? Is this going to... Because if he's laughing like that, it's like this amazing kind of like, yeah, okay.
David Brady allows us and allows the country to get excited about GAA rumours. There's just something about the way he talks about Mayo football, which is obviously based in pure and utter passion and love for the county, that makes this almost as exciting as an All-Ireland final preview, or makes it almost as exciting as kind of championship chat or anything. A managerial vacancy in Mayo is now one of my favourite things because of characters like David Brady.
There's so much pressure now on whoever comes in next as well. So just a quick word. I was asked by somebody yesterday, is it possible to listen to an audio-only stream? If you're watching this and actually you don't really want to just watch it, you want to just listen to it and stick it in your earphones on your commute, you can go to offthewall.com, and on the top, especially if you're on your phone, there's like just a play button, and you just hit the play button, and lo and behold, if that's working, you should be able to hear audio only, in the stream's about 5 seconds behind us. So there you go.
Magic.
Yeah, so I want to move on to the Declan Rice story. Unbelievable passion really from Kevin Kilban, but totally understandable passion from Kevin Kilban. So he tweeted yesterday, "I'd rather be ranked 150th in the world and never qualify again than have someone who has played but needs time to think whether they should play for us again." Well done to Martin O'Neill for transparency. That was after the FAI tweeted that Declan Rice is still deliberating. He's a young man. England have spoken to him. He's taken time to make his mind up. He's done brilliantly for us. I'm giving him a little bit of time. Hashtag Coy Big. So 1,000 retweets, 5,000 likes. James McLean obviously agreed with it on Twitter last night as well. We'll get into this a bit more in the newspapers. I want to play a clip of Kev last night. This might get the conversation started for us this morning as well. Hashtag OTBAM if you've got any opinions about what is going on with Declan Rice. Should say that I think that decision was made once the phone call is made to Martin O'Neill to say, can we put it on pause? That there's no wiggle room here. That's it. You don't get to come back from that. You're like, it's like, you know, it's not you, it's me. Maybe we can work this out over a period of time. That's all tending to this is a breakup, and this is how 19-year-olds break up with you. It's like,
Declan Rice and Ireland are on a break, and that break is for the foreseeable future, which is his entire footballing career.
Yeah.
Martin O'Neill, you got to applaud him for this, because many manager would have come out and just told a line of, you know, Declan's injured, he's not quite right. That's what would have been said by most managers. So he's come out today and he said, well, look, this is what I'm dealing with here. England have been in touch, and we've got to respect his decision for that. Personally, I know I'm certainly, you know, agents accused me in the past of maybe tweeting to get likes and all this sort of crap, but that's not the case at all. Honestly, genuinely with this, I feel as though that he's turned his head. He's had his head turned. Why on earth play for us in the first place to then consider going to play for a different country? Yeah, that's what I genuinely feel with it. And personally, if he's called back into the squad, or if he were then to change his mind and think, I'm going to go, what does that say to the rest of the lads? What does that say to young kids growing up, that you can actually, you know, you're aspiring to be a Declan Rice, you're aspiring to be, you know, if you're English born, you're aspiring to be Declan Rice, that you've got pride in playing for Ireland, then all of a sudden, I could actually go and play for someone else as well, or a young boy's over here in Ireland that's growing up, and they're listening tonight, or they're seeing what Declan Rice is doing. What's that saying to them? They're coming through a system where someone's taken 3 caps off an Irishman. That's the way that I'd look at it. You've taken 3 caps off someone here, and you shouldn't have been involved in the first place if you're actually going to make this decision further down the line.
Yeah, it's kind of feeling pretty passionate about that last night. Here's the James McLean tweet that we were talking about as well. Bang on, lad. Representing your country should be an honour and a proud moment. That was obviously screen grabbed early enough, because that one went pretty mad last night as well. So interesting to see if James McLean ever comes up against Declan Rice in a Carabao Cup game. A meaningless second round Carabao Cup game. The game's petering out. It's like 3-0 to West Ham. James McLean, the ball was there, I think. Or not.
The ball was actually at the opposite end of the pitch, James. Oh, sorry, I just kind of mistimed that one, Declan. Apologies about that.
He'd get a lifetime ban, James McLean, for kicking England's Declan Rice up in the air.
It'd be kind of worrying. Like, there does seem to be sort of 2 schools of thought around this. So there seems to be Kevin's school of thought that, you know, this is an absolute shame on Declan Rice, that this is a horrible decision, he's stealing caps off players. And then there seems to be the opposite school of thought saying, well, you know, this is just modern football, the young lad has to think about his future as a commercial entity. Ultimately, you've only got, whatever, a 15-year window as a professional footballer. You've got to make as much money as possible. You've got to keep yourself in the shop window for as long as possible. And basically, playing for England will give you more commercial capabilities than playing for Ireland. But I don't think that they're 2 sides of the fence that have to be exclusive. Like, I do think that you can have a bit of column A and a bit of column B in this, where it's right to feel anger towards them, but it's also right to feel anger towards the idea that this is just how it is now. This isn't... Declan Rice is not going to be the last person we're having this conversation about.
I hate the game, not the player, is what you're saying, except it's possible to do both. Right, so coming up, bye-bye José, 8:15, we're going to be talking about the 3-0 thumping at Old Trafford last night. 0-all at half-time. Things going very well for José at that point, but it all fell apart in the second half. 3-0 it finished. We'll play José Mourinho's press conference, which will go down in infamy after that game last night. Rochford is gone. There's kind of been mumblings of that pretty much since the Kildare game, and it has come to pass. We'll get reaction and analysis to that as well a little bit later on as well. And then the Dream Team. It was, who knew it at the time, but like one of the greatest collections of talent that has ever been assembled for an Irish sports ad. An Irish ad? Is it possible it's also the greatest Irish ad of all time?
An Irish piece of art?
I mean, an Irish piece of art.
Ulysses, yeah. Carlsberg ad.
Yeah, it's right.
This goes on.
So, Lenny Abrahamson, the Oscar-nominated director, and Jason McAteer, we're going to reunite them at 9 o'clock this morning to celebrate the fact that, well, we like the fact that we won the World Cup for that one brief moment. I think it's it comes out pre-Saipan too, so there's like this massive kind of... This is actually a possible thing. This is showing us what might be possible. And then Saipan happened.
But then, you know, we got the penalty shootout against Spain, and that happened.
I know.
South Korea were lurking on the same side of the draw, and the hope was still there, so...
We should have won that. If only Kev had stuck that one in, we would have been all grand. Ah, no, it's not Kev's fault. I mean, we equalised after that, so... Then he missed the penalty as well. Time for the sports pages.
OTBAM. Thanks to Screwfix.ie. Championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.
OK, we're starting with the Times Ireland edition, and Rochford I quit over lack of support is the headline on Gary Doyle's piece. Busy day for Gary Doyle yesterday. He's writing that piece, and then he also has a think piece on the Declan Rice situation, which I'll come to in just a second. O'Neill blames Rice's agent is the headline on the piece there. And Munster sign Murray cover. Conor Murray could miss the opening rounds of Munster's Heineken Champions Cup campaign after the province signed Albie Mathewson on a short-term deal. The 32-year-old former New Zealand scrum half will sign a 4-month contract from current club Toulon, subject to a work permit to provide cover for the Lions number 9. He's ruled out for the short-term period. This is obviously unbelievably worrying because, Conor Murray is right there with Johnny Sexton in terms of their importance to the Ireland setup, and it is a neck injury, according to one of the papers this morning, so that's not great. So, Irish or English, Rice takes time to consider future. Gary Doyle has some brilliant detail on this. Who other than Rice knows what he really is, though? If he is like Matthew Macklin, the Birmingham-born boxer who won British and Irish titles, he may have dual allegiances. In this day and age, you can call yourself both Irish and English, Macklin said in 2012. Or he may be like Andy O'Brien, who even after 26 caps for Ireland did not have a feeling for either country. It filled me with pride when a son of mine played for Ireland, and then broke my heart that my son no longer felt Irish. Terry O'Brien, his father, said, I can understand that. I grew up in the same Yorkshire town as Andrew, and initially I didn't feel Irish or English either, just poor. Terry O'Brien's nationalistic tendencies came when he was 10, when he looked at the signs, no Irish, no blacks, no dogs, hanging in the doorways of the rooms that his Limerick-born parents were trying to rent in 1950s Harrogate. Kev's spoken about this before, about the fact that his parents would have experienced racism when they went over to England. And Gary Breen talked about last night growing up in the 70s and 80s in England, in London, and his experience being surrounded by Irish people. So, in a way, it's the next generation. Like, Declan Rice is the right age to be Gary Breen's son, And, you can see how that level of racism dissipates and it dissolves, and there are no blacks, no Irish, no dogs signs hanging up in guest houses in England anymore. That's not to say that racism has disappeared. Of course, it obviously hasn't, and it's making unfortunately a massive comeback. But you can see how that generation felt the desire to be Irish far more keenly than the next generation, who are taking for granted the advances that Kev's generation and Gary Breen's generation won. And you can also see, therefore, why it means so much to Kev and to Gary Breen that this becomes a currency to be traded. Nationality becomes something that's malleable and not defined, because theirs was forged against something very specific and very hard. And I just feel that, unfortunately, life has changed to a point where this isn't going to be important to people the way that it was in the past. And we as a country need to decide what we want to do with our footballing future. That, going after these kids at this age, you're playing a lottery with them. Some of these lotteries you're going to win, and some of them you're going to lose. And ultimately, I think we have to continue doing this, and we need to simultaneously develop the league here so that there are plenty of young players heading over at 19 and 20 to England to play professional football.
Yeah, once we continue to do this, there will continue to be evidence of people like Declan Rice who will disappoint all of us. Let's call a spade here. We're all disappointed with the decision. Some of us are angry, some of us aren't angry. Some of us are accepting that this is the way football is, and some of us aren't so accepting.
We've been jilted by somebody who might have been a little bit out of our league.
Perhaps that's it. It's I don't know. The idea that the nationalism has lessened there's probably some sort of truth there, and the idea that Declan Rice didn't at first hand experience racism in the United Kingdom is probably a sad truth in all of this. That it's the hardening of your ideals as an Irish person, or no matter what nationality you are, in the United Kingdom just isn't there anymore. But particularly from an Irish perspective, you do mention there that racism is making a bit of a comeback. It's getting a bit of a renaissance in the UK at the moment. But from an Irish perspective, it's probably not there at the moment. Declan Rice has probably never experienced that in the way that perhaps his grandparents might have done, or anything like that. It's a strange one. It's a very, very strange one to kind of talk about it in those terms, that you almost need to kind of look back on the days when the Irish were treated like crap, for the days when Irish people who were born in the UK start to feel more Irish. It's a sad sort of contradiction, but there's certainly more than an element of truth in it all.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is the money. Like, it's clearly about... It's hard when you're 19 to think, that decision's going to cost me a couple of million quid.
But the only reason the money becomes an impact is because of the lack of a feeling of Irish nationalism, right? Or not nationalism, the feeling of identifying as an Irish person.
Well, like, I mean, I don't know.
It's pretty clear that Kevin Kilbane would have still made his same decision.
But sure, but that's like, so...
If he was playing right now, if he was 19 years old right now.
100% that, like, at the same time, that's the culture that you have experienced. Like, there's a reason why it means so much to people. But like today, it's a far different thing. Like, you know, I think as well that if maybe your mum and dad grew up in Ireland and you're being raised in an Irish way in England, and you're like, you're given an Ireland shirt when you're a kid, but like, does that happen? Did that happen in this instance? You know,
it depends on.
If you're living in Dublin, will your kids have Kerry jerseys?
Well, like that's an interesting.
You'd want to be some kind of wanker to do that, wouldn't you?
Well, I mean, I was born in London, and I was given Kerry jerseys and Ireland jerseys as a kid. Like, I mean, it's...
How long did you...
Like, what was it, 5 or 6? I was very, very young, in fairness, when you leave. But it's like there is more of a feeling of Irish nationalism.
That was really David Nathan, by the way, that he gives his kids Mayo jerseys instead of Dublin jerseys, and they're like...
I can sort of see why, but Mayo's a very special case, as we've started to see. It depends where you're from. I think... When it comes to nationalism and living in the UK and all of that, when you're from a different country, like, you're going to put a stamp on that sort of stuff, no? But ultimately, what impact does that have on the human that you become wearing an Irish jersey when you're 5 years old?
But it also diffuses over, like, a generation. So, you know, I think first generation, it's far more important. Second generation is like, oh, that's an interesting part of my makeup. I must do a little bit of reading and try and discover a bit about that, as opposed to feeling the pang of connection.
Yeah, the curiosity rather than an emotional connection to the motherland, so to speak.
Yeah, like, it's just, oh, yeah, I'll play here. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, like, and I also feel like the absolute virus that has been the Premier League's takeover of football and the discussions of football in England means that that whole element of nationality and playing for the national team has tended to be less important. Like
you would wonder as well, though, like, is it really the parents, is it really your Irish heritage that has the most impact on you in terms of identifying with a country, or is it the people you go to school with, the people that Declan Rice has been playing football with for literally his entire life, who are mostly English?
I mean, I think it's your experience, and if you've nothing against the people who are...
You don't rail against it.
Yeah, so like, it's like, I'm part of this, as opposed to I'm not part of this. I'm not othered in any way by being a part of this.
And that comes back to the point I was just making there. It's perverse to think that a growing acceptance of Irish people has led to a growing feeling that being Irish isn't as important as it used to be. It's one big contradiction, but of course the commercialism is a bit of a factor pushing people in the opposite direction.
Rochford forced out in Mayo. Horan, early frontrunners, outgoing boss blames a lack of support. I haven't given up on Rice yet, says O'Neill. I think that's just him saying the right things at this stage, but surely it's done. Murray and Race to be fit for All Blacks clash as Munster signed Mathewson. The All Blacks clash, and he looks like, oh, they're pretty good. Cup of cheer. Winless Hammers should avoid EFL embarrassment. Screw you, West Ham. And your chairman and your crappy stadium. Curra paddock too small and set for second revamp. This is the lead on the Racing Post this morning. The parade ring at the centre of the Curra's €72 million revamp faces being at least partly torn up and reconstructed after it was deemed too small to safely cater for large numbers, but it could be more than a year before the issue is addressed. And Samcro 50-50 to be kept hurtling. We'll talk about that on Friday Night Racing with Johnny Ward on Friday afternoon. Walking away, Rochford quits Mayo, blaming lack of board support. And then Theatre of Screams, United thumped by slick Spurs to heap pressure on Mourinho. Give Declan some space. Martin O'Neill urges calm over Rice tug of war.
Are you sad about this?
About Rice?
Declan Rice?
Not really. Like, if he
I'm sad about this.
But if he doesn't want to play, like it'd be a terrible thing for him to be locked into playing for Ireland for a decade and constantly thinking, I really wish I wasn't here, you know, I don't feel any connection with this. And like, I don't feel sad at all about the fact that somebody is making the decision. Like, it's not nice to be rejected.
No.
And it's disappointing that we don't have access to this player for a decade, because it looked like he was going to be somebody who you could really admire and build a football culture around and point at and go, that's exactly what you need to do. Like Gary Breen talked about his attitude when he was talking about hard work was going to beat talent.
Just as a counterpoint to that, saying that it would have been sad to have a player here who didn't really feel a connection to us. Like, if he goes and plays for England, he's not going to feel any more of a connection to England than he would have felt to Ireland. In fact, the evidence is there that he felt more of a connection to Ireland, no? Like, I'm not saying that he had a love for playing for either nation, like quite a lot of young people do. They don't, as we've already discussed, have that sort of nationalistic pang. But you get the sense he's played underage for Ireland. Why would he have any more of a feeling of love for the England jersey than he would for the Ireland jersey? I think there might be an apathy towards both. So to say that he would have played for Ireland and felt sad because he's in an Ireland jersey, I don't buy that.
Because he's from England.
Well, like,
grew up in England.
But you see, like,
Mates are English.
Okay, we've established that, but he hasn't actually come out and said, I feel more English than Irish. Like, why pull on the Irish jersey in the first place? And this kind of comes back to the point that Kevin was making, despite the fact that I kind of accept where he's coming from. This idea that he would have been sad playing for Ireland, and he didn't really.
I'm not saying he would have been sad. Like, it's like that. You know, at some point he wakes up and goes, "This isn't really who I am." Like, you've got to be fully committed if you're going to play international football. The whole point of international football is that it's our country's best against your country's best, right? And I fully understand how and why we as a country are looking at the diaspora and going, well, screw you, you know. We've basically had a load of crap happen to us, some of it self-inflicted, and we've had to send our people all around the world. And so, yeah, we are going to look at the kids of our people and go, yeah, you can play for us. Come on, play for us. We're a good team to play for. This is great. Do you having a crack? Yeah, let's all have the crack, right?
I don't think that would have happened with Declan Rice.
Well, I don't know, but if he feels it now, and if he's not fully ready to sign up to that, then fair enough. Look, I don't think there's a hope in hell that he changes his mind. I think that this is how he's breaking up with this, and it's like, you know, in 6 months' time or a year's time or 2 years' time, he's like, oh, look, you know, probably shouldn't have played for them underage, but I did anyway, and I'm just going to keep my head down and wait for the England call. And that's fair enough. But if he was to change his mind and say, actually, I do want to play for Ireland, then I'm like, oh, yeah, well, okay, great, fair enough. But I'm not like, it's disappointing. I'm not angry. I have no sense of like...
Does the badge kissing thing make you angry? It pisses me off a little bit, I'm not going to lie.
People do stupid things. Kissing the badge has never been the sign of
quite
loyalty.
Pointed though, isn't it?
Well,
it's easier to not kiss the badge than kiss the badge. And I realise I'm being quite petty here, but it is. It's easier to just like forget about it. Like, you have to put some sort of thought after. You didn't actually score the goal, but
you don't. You're just kissing the badge. It's like it's the type of crap. It's like doing the Fortnite celebration. I mean, I don't really know what it means. Like,
but you have to think about it.
You don't.
You have to think about what you're actually doing, the physical act of doing it.
Look, fair enough. You're angry about a kid kissing the badge in a moment of high adrenaline. Fair enough. Off you go. I'm glad that you're angry about that, but I'm not getting angry about it. I'm like, I can see how people make mistakes.
So stop being so accepting of this, sure. That's all I'm saying.
I just like.
As I've said, I can completely buy the whole commercial aspect of it, because that is just, he's a 21st century footballer, specifically in this current climate. You can completely see why he's done it, but it's kind of hard to accept given the story we've seen so far with Declan Rice, is all I'm saying. It just it ticks me off a little bit, and it's obviously pissed off a lot more people in a lot more of a heavy way.
Contapomi inundated. Sorry, no, that's not right.
Undaunted.
Is it possible that I need glasses? What a...
No, definitely. Keep
terrible moment that is in life. Undaunted by coming in after Leinster's perfect season. Munster signed cover for injured Murray. Leinster eager to regain crown from Munster as season kicks off early. This is the women's interpros. And then Rice deserves time to decide is Emmett Malone's think piece on this. One of Kevin Kilbann's many strengths as a commentator on club and international football is the particular effort he seems to make to see things from a participant's point of view. He can come across sometimes as fair to a fault, so his reaction to the news that Declan Rice had asked for more time to consider his international future somehow came across as uncharacteristically harsh. Kilbann knows far better than most what the 19-year-old is going through, but tweeted, "I'd rather be ranked 150th in the world and never qualify again than have someone who has played but needs time to think whether they should play for us again." He said, known at 10 who he wanted to play for. Rice, it seems, has not yet figured it out.
What if, I know it's not going to happen, but what if Declan Rice did decide to play for Ireland?
Yeah, I would say welcome him back. It's like, okay, you went away and you thought about it, and Declan Rice, there's no decision to be made. If I didn't want to be playing for Ireland, I wouldn't be here. That's what he said back in the day. Tommy's going to hit me now with a bunch of stuff that Declan Rice has said in the past to try and get people angry. Like, he made his mind up. A new agent comes on the scene. The chairman puts pressure on him. The head coach is like, "You're dropped from my team." I don't know if
that's my point though. That it's not. This doesn't feel like a decision of nationality. It feels like a decision based on brand Declan Rice, and Declan Rice may not be behind that. It's the agent behind that,
or it's the club. Like, it's the club putting pressure on him, saying, "Oh, you had a bad game there. Like, hey, stop playing for Ireland. You need to declare for England." Because so the club will get the 80 million if he's sold for 80 million. He won't get the 80 million. Say Declan Rice plays brilliantly this season, plays brilliantly next season, goes to the Euros for England and is like part of a 3-man central defence for England. He's the last missing piece that England need to go forward. Then suddenly it's West Ham who get the benefit of. He will also obviously make loads of money in endorsements, be on crap ads on TV, and get paid loads of money. But so if you're West Ham, it's far more in your interest to go, "You're English anyway, what are you doing?" Here's David Gold's tweet from last night. "My hope all along, dumbass, has been that Declan first becomes an England player and then follows in the footsteps of the great Bobby Moore by becoming the captain of England. Born in England, made in West Ham United. DG, David Gold." David Gold. Do a bit of reading about David Gold. Do a bit of reading about how West Ham treated Bobby Moore at the end of his life, where he had to beg and scrounge for tickets as well, if you want to know about the classy way that West Ham treat their players. So it's very possible that the conflicting forces here aren't Gareth Southgate versus Martin O'Neill, but rather it's the day job of the West Ham hierarchy to try and make money for their club, and they're in a terrible situation at the minute with the way that the ground move has been completely screwed up. And they're saying, "You're not going to play again until you decide you're going to play for England. It's your choice. What are you going to do?" That's who knows? They're all possibilities. Because tabloids.
And then the great irony of all of that, of him getting dropped. So they persuade Pellegrini to start Declan Rice now, or are they going to start meddling with just because he's English again, because they want to play the long game and make sure he gets picked for England?
Is that not possible? Is that not very possible that West Ham have said, "Okay, we're not going to play you until you make your decision here," and that's feeding into his form not being great, and then suddenly, well, let's wait and see.
If that's what's happened here, and that's what's the conversation they've had over the last fortnight, well then football is screwed. Simple as that. It might already be though. Back page of the Irish Daily Mail is parting shot. Rochford quits after a lack of board support, and pressure is showing on José Mourinho as a 3-0 win for Spurs at Old Trafford last night. Back page of the Herald is McGinley talking about the Dubs. Their drive is scary, he says. We'll be hearing from Enda McGinley and Barney Rock very shortly ourselves. And the teen is lured by English cap. That is Martin O'Neill speaking on the Declan Rice situation. Back page of the Irish Daily Star is Moura Jose Woe. That's Lucas Moura there yesterday with his breakout performance in a Tottenham jersey, like a new signing almost for Spurs, it seems, with a bit of pace that Spurs were absolutely crying out for over the past season or so. Back page of the Mirror is "You're getting sacked in the morning." Spurs fans taunt for Jose. "Be nice to Rice as well," is the headline there with a picture of Gareth Southgate and Declan Rice. Back page of the Sun is "Decision time" with Dec in Ireland colours. Rice's head has been turned. Roch in a hard place then is a pretty good headline on the Stephen Rochford story. And then finally, back page of The Guardian is "Binding together rugby in union to cut losses." So this is a special report by Paul Rees and David Conn in terms of finances in the Premiership, and they look behind the numbers, and more misery for Mourinho. Brazilian strikes twice to seal Spurs' victory over hapless Manchester United.
The English Rugby Premiership is a complete shambles. We'll be doing more on that story again and again and again, just to point out how much of a shambles it is, and we particularly do it to a bunch of English hacks who will get on and remind again and again and again how they were lording it over everybody for a number of years about how great the Premiership was, but actually it turns out it's a complete basket case. We're going to talk with Darren in a minute about everything else that's going on, and then we'll speak with Andy Mitten about last night's 3-0 defeat at Old Trafford for Manchester United against Spurs. Lads, it's Spurs has never been more meaningless from a Manchester United perspective. First though, here's David Brady speaking last night on the show about how Jim McGuinness isn't going to be the new Mayo manager.
Oh Jesus, Paul Francis, it's becoming an absolute, it's becoming a joke, and I won't at this juncture. It's not a time for naming names, but I can tell you, Jim McGuinness is anywhere next Mayo associated with Mayo football. I know that, and going forward, what Mayo need.
How do you know that? Sorry.
How do I know that? Because Mayo's next appointment will be for someone that is there to develop and needs to be developing Mayo football, not just for the next 6 months or 12 months. I think Mayo need to step back away from saying we want to win Ireland. We want to do the very best we can. We want to put everything in place to win it, but the structures need to be there. And I think it's not because the name Jim McGuinness, but I think a guy coming into town, all guns blazing, is not what Mayo need. We need a plan, and we need someone that's going to be there for the next 3 or 4 years. But that's never guaranteed in Mayo football. You have good men. You have good men there. And I'd ask you, the next time you ask James Horan, to ask him what was the real story, because the longer that Mayo managers keep their lips sealed and are afraid to really reveal the truth, well, the longer this will continue.
Well, hang on, that's a big statement to make. So that suggests the county board are not up to it.
Well, I'm not saying the county, because the county board is a word. It means it's an amalgamation of people at the top table. Now, there's different people, different chairmen, like between Stephen Rochford's time and James Horan's time. You know, you're saying to yourself, if it's allowed, if there's something rotten in the state of Denmark, it needs to be pointed out. Mm-hmm. Because otherwise, yes, the county board are going to get the blame. But if you don't point it out and you don't tell us what's wrong, you don't say what's wrong and prove it, well, then it's always going to continue.
The Prince of Denmark himself there, Shakespearean in all of its tragedy, as Mayo football is, David Brady, capturing the moment perfectly last night. Here's Darren.
Morning, Ger. Tottenham manager Mauricio Pochettino says he never considered stripping Hugo Lloris of the captaincy. That was following the Frenchman's arrest for alleged drink driving in the early hours of Friday morning. He played in the 3-0 Premier League victory at Manchester United 48 hours later. The World Cup winner has wholeheartedly apologised for drink driving, saying it was completely unacceptable. Lloris released on bail and due to appear in court on the 11th of September. Pochettino says the behaviour is out of character and as such had no reason to drop him.
I never considered that. When all happened, I was in contact with him. So bad experience for him. He feels so sorry. He apologized everyone, but not only apologize our fans, us, the club. If not, I think he showed his regret and apologized all the country, because that responsibility is massive. And I think it's a massive lesson for everyone. Massive lesson. He's punishing himself. He feels so sorry and so bad because he knows that made a big mistake. But in the same way, I think he's a man out of character, and we are going to, of course, support him, but knowing that we cannot justify. Of course, it's no sense to take some decision like you told me.
Mohamed Salah making headlines this morning. His feud with the Egyptian FA is being escalating for the last few days. The Liverpool striker has accused them of neglecting player safety and comfort at the World Cup. Salah, of course, dislocated his shoulder in the build-up to that tournament, but he netted 2 goals in Russia. It was in vain as they were eliminated in the group stage of the competition following 3 straight defeats. The Liverpool striker outlined his issues in a Facebook video, claiming the squad had no place to eat breakfast or lunch on one occasion because the restaurant at the team hotel was open to the public. Bit of a Saipan bang off this. He says, "We need guards cards with the team while travelling. We have asked for that in a letter for the EFA, which they have never responded to. He also claims that fans knocked on his hotel room door at 4 a.m. to take pictures with him, and he said anyone was free to roam the hotel and bother the player. Salah added, they make us travel in economy class, which is exhausting for every player. All the other African teams fly in business class. While in tennis, Andy Murray made a winning return to Grand Slam action overnight. The Scot defeated unseeded Australian James Duckworth in the first round of the US Open. Defending men's champion Rafa Nadal also went through after opponent David Ferrer retired due to injury. Simona Halep has fallen though at the first hurdle. She became the first women's top seed to exit the first round of the tournament in the Open era. Well, finally to cricket, Ireland slipped to a 29-run defeat against Afghanistan in the first one-day international in Belfast. Ireland chasing a target of 228 to win, but they were bowled out for 198. The second one-day international in the three-match series takes place at the same venue on Wednesday.
Good stuff, Darren. Thanks for that. OTBAM is live with Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. Now, here's Pat Nevin talking about the shambolic defending at Old Trafford from Manchester United last night.
Yeah, I mean, well, summed up by the Danny Rose back pass, and then that Lindelof one when he came on, that back pass. I mean, what on earth was he thinking about then? He got away with it because Dele Alli couldn't put it in. But if you think about it, Spurs have scored 3. Dele Alli probably ought to have scored that one when he's gone round the hair, just at the second half there. And of course, Harry Kane had that header at the back post, which 99 times out of 100, Harry Kane scores. So 3-0, it could have been a lot worse, actually. So it's a horrible night. So oddly enough, you know, the energy levels are fine for Manchester United. That's all okay. But the defence just looks a shambles at the moment. And for Manchester United to lose 3 goals in 2 games in a row, one of them at home, that's unthinkable. And forget Manchester United, for José Mourinho team to lose that is unbelievable.
That's the extraordinary thing.
Mourinho's worst ever home defeat in the league in any of his matches ever as a manager as a grown-up. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
As a grown-up in age in terms of the date that's on his passport, but he is getting more and more he's almost borderline. If somebody asked him his age now, he'd probably say 55 and a half. He's that childish. He'd have that in the half somewhere or other. He is
3/4.
Like, first of all, I'm not having this idea that José Mourinho is still a boring old man. Like, I've made this point before. I think last night just rubber stamped the idea that exciting José Mourinho is back. It's in a very different way, but last night's press conference will go down in infamy forever. It was one of the best things I've ever witnessed. It was just glorious. So, like, we are enjoying this. Everybody who's not a Manchester United fan is loving this current crisis that José Mourinho is experiencing at Manchester United.
Declan Hughes has been in touch this morning. You can leave quotes, you can leave comments for us on Periscope. We see all those if you're watching on Periscope. You can also just tweet us with the hashtag OTBAM or comment on the Facebook stream or the YouTube stream, whatever it is, however you get access to us in the morning. So Declan says, I was born in Dublin and I lived abroad in Canada from 3 to 9. When I came home, I was accused of being Canadian. The only way I could assert my Irishness was to be better at speaking the official language than most of my classmates. It only took me 18 months to achieve. Smiley face. However, when I returned to Montreal, which I have done most years for the past decade, it still feels like home. However, I don't feel Canadian. By the same token, I could never see myself living anywhere in Ireland other than Dublin, and I've lived here for 47 years. I think the point about this is that it's a mishmash of different sensations and feelings, and
you can't explain them.
And like, ultimately, they don't make any sense. You know,
no.
Like, nationalism is a weird, terrible thing, particularly the way it has evolved over the last decade or so. And like, we have our own tortured history with ultranationalism here, and like, at the same time, you can completely understand that international football is now the only way that most of us really feel any way of accessing football in a meaningful, that this isn't a rigged match, that this isn't just going to go to the team who has the most resources. You know, it would be not great if we ended up watching World Cups and thinking England, Germany, France are just going to suck up all the best players from other countries as well.
Like, I agree with all of that, but ultimately there's truth in the idea and the fact that this is what's getting the likes of Kevin and Gary Breen so angry. It is that nationalism, and it doesn't matter if Declan Rice doesn't feel Irish. The fact of the matter is we were all duped by his apparent Irishness, that it really did feel, Ger, that Declan Rice honestly believed he was Irish, and that this possibility of playing for England was never a possibility, that he was never going to change. He was never going to renege on what looked like a promise that he was going to play for Ireland. And maybe that makes us sore losers in all of this, in what is now just a game. International football is just a game. It's as commercial as many other sports in professional sports at the moment, and we've been duped. But ultimately, there has been a history of evidence here that would suggest that Declan Rice was a proud Irishman, and that's what's making a lot of people sore this morning, not the idea that he's completely kind of done a U-turn on this. I think there's more that meets the eye here. I don't think the Declan Rice scenario and the whole thing is a one-size-fits-all scenario.
Declan Rice should make the best decision for himself and consider no one else. That's football these days. When his sell by date arrives, no one will show any allegiance or loyalty to him. Sean Canning says Kilban is 100% right. Rice should never have played in senior internationals if he wasn't sure of his allegiances. #OTBAM. I think that's like... There needs to be a much earlier cut-off point.
That's a rule change, isn't it?
And that should be probably under 18. Like, once you go over the age of 18, if you pick a team, that's your team. That, like, we will send you to war. You will be forced to kill somebody if you're part of our army, but we don't trust you to make your decision about which football team you're going to play for because you're 19. It's like, screw that. Either you're allowed to vote and you can make your decisions and you can stand as an adult and you can go to prison as an adult. That's 18, that's not 21, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I like, conversely to what I've been saying there, I'm not entirely sure about that whole thing as well, because the point of yours that I do agree with is that you can be fluid when it comes to this sort of stuff, that you can sort of be undecided at least at a very late age. And I think for the reasons we've discussed, particularly with the society they grew up in, it meant people like Kevin Kilban were quite sure of their nationality by, as he says, being 10 years of age. And I think at that stage of his life he was very, very sure. But I think you have to allow for people who just aren't sure at certain points in their life. And again, just coming back to this point, the idea was that he was sure. We were all convinced that he was sure.
Exactly. Like, and when do we have to wait until you get sure? Is it like...
That comes back to that first comment there.
No, you make your mind up.
It's a complicated thing. You don't know what you're going to feel at a certain point.
But at some point, there's a cut-off point, and you've got all your life up to that point to make a decision. And then after that, you've got to live with your decision.
Well, I would say that once you play one senior match, you're kind of nailed down, no? Whether it's a friendly or not. Like if it's under 18s, if it's whatever it is like once you played your last underage game, then if you want to switch for your first senior game, then so be it. But once you play that first senior game for a country, that's the country you're from. I think that's a fair enough system. Like the rules need to be looked at. There's no question about that.
Wow, I'm just reading some of the anti-James McLean tweets and clicking on their Twitter bios. Well, that is a wormhole that I ain't going to go down. So there you go. We're going to speak with Mike Finnerty a little bit later on about the situation in Mayo and the continuity of the various county boards and who actually will end up making the decision. So Holmes and Kennelly, who were the managers who got kicked out because of player power, the brother of Kennelly is still the county board chairman. So, I mean, I presume Holmes and Kennelly aren't an option going into the future. You would assume that their time and their ship sailed.
It will be
the Mayo County Board, so who knows?
It will be the brassest neck we ever did see if that were to happen, if they were to be reinstated. Like, imagine what the players would do. There would be all-out revolt. And who knows, maybe the county board would just be like, all right, you can all strike. We're going to make a Mayo Mark II, and they're going to represent our county in inter-county games and stuff, but surely not.
All right, let's go back to the Manchester United situation and José Mourinho. I think this is one of the all-time classic press conferences that is going to live in infamy, and when the end is written of the Mourinho era, people will kind of remember this as one of the moments that is going to stick out for everybody. Have a look.
Okay. Now, just to finish, do you know what was the result? 3-0. 3-0. Do you know what this means? 3-0. But also mean 3 premierships, and I won more premierships alone than the other 19 managers together. 3 for me and 2 for them. Respect, man. Respect.
Andy Mitten, good morning to you.
Not really good morning, is it? But I'll say good morning and wish you well.
Well, so where to begin? Let's start with the press conference and the madness of of that. There was always a sense in Mourinho's press conferences that even when he was like seemingly out of control, that it was some part of orchestrated master plan, that he actually knew what he was doing and there was deflection. But that didn't seem like he was in control. That seemed like it seemed like ranting, to be honest.
Yeah, he's struggling. His press conferences have always been very unpredictable. And often when he's been successful, they've worked in his favour. I can remember very clearly when his Real Madrid team knocked Manchester United out of the Champions League in 2013. And he was very magnanimous, saying the best team lost here tonight. But it's easy to be magnanimous when you've just won a football game. He's just lost the second of the 3 opening Premier League games. United have not lost 2 of their opening 3 since 1992-93. Of course, he went on to win the league that year for the first time in 26 years. I think you'll struggle to find a Manchester United fan who thinks they're going to win the league this year. The mood is very, very flat, and results are making it this way. I've done the full pre-season. I've been at the last 8 matches, and I've seen the press conferences. I was at Brighton last week, and he's become more... He's downbeat. He doesn't look happy. He's clearly not happy because his team are not doing what he's asking them to do. But I don't think he helped himself pre-season. He had a chance pre-season when football fans are naturally optimistic to set the tone, which trickles down from the manager. You're the most important person at the club. And right from the start, he was miserable. Now, he's got his reasons for being miserable because he wasn't getting the players in. But he could have made an early rallying call to get the fans behind him. He really could have done. And I told him last Sunday at Brighton, I spoke to him before the game, I said, the fans are behind you, you know. Those people behind the goal are behind you, and you will hear that today. Not on about everybody online around the world going absolutely mad. I'm on about the match-going fans. And in the first 15 minutes, before it fell apart at Brighton, those fans were behind him. The problem is the more games that the team lose, that affects his popularity. So going into 2018, he was pretty much the unanimous choice for Manchester United fans. That severe defeat in February, that hammered him. The end of the season was very flat. The football was poor. And the start of this season has been very poor as well. So more people will get on his case. He's feeling the pressure. He's got a big problem called Pep Guardiola, who lives a mile away from him. And it's all adding up. And he's only human. He's being asked to do something that he can't do.
Did I deserve to lose that game 3-0 last night, Andy?
I take his point that, United were dreadful at Brighton. Dreadful. Against Tottenham in the first half, I thought the team actually played well. The problem is, one, the chances, they were struggling to get them on target. I mean, it was until the 34th minute that Paul Pogba had a pretty lame shot on target. Prior to that, you had Lukaku had a very good chance to score. You've got to be putting chances away at the top level. And a concern and a problem is when Manchester United now go behind, there is a lack of response. We saw it at Brighton when you had lots of time to play well. United have still got very good players. For all the problems going on, there's a lot of very talented players still at that football club. And those 2 quick Tottenham goals, bang, it just knocked the stuff in. And what little confidence there seems to be out of the players. The crowd tried the best. They tried to get behind the team. They were still behind the manager. They're probably still behind the manager. But there are problems there. United have got 3 points from the first 9. They've conceded 7 goals. And as that game was ending last night, I tried to work out when was the last time this club conceded more than 7 goals in the first 3 matches. And I had to go back to 1969 when the club was in disarray because Sir Matt Busby was coming to the end of his time. And if I look deeply into it, I'm sure I'll find more parallels there.
What happens now? Because there's been he's basically tried all of his centre-back partnerships at this point, and that seemed a pointed team selection last night. And every time he picks a centre-back pairing now, it seems like there's some pointed dig at Woodward and the refusal to back him to buy central defenders over the course of the summer. So what is the way out of this, really, where Mourinho somehow fixes the team at least until Christmas, and at that point maybe they can buy, or gets through the season? It's beginning to... I can't see a way that Mourinho lasts the season from here.
It was a pointed selection. I think it was also a sensible one because the players who performed poorly at Brighton were dropped, mainly. The people who were at fault were dropped or put onto the substitutes bench. Victor Lindelof came back onto the pitch because of an injury. He's having a terrible time at the moment. His confidence looks so shot that he doesn't look capable of playing for Manchester United. What is the way out of this? Well, I still think there are a lot of very good players there. This is a team who finished second in the Premier League last year. They didn't finish 14th, but they're not playing for their manager. And that is a problem. And people say to me, when's he going to last? He's going to be gone in a month, isn't he? He's going to be gone in 2 months. I don't know the answer. I don't think that he knows the answer. I think that the club, if you ask Ed Woodward now, he doesn't want to sack José Mourinho. And even a lot of Manchester United fans, they will still back him. Partly because it's very early, partly because there's no obvious plan B at the moment. Who do you bring in now? There's the fanciful choice, Zinedine Zidane. I spoke to people at Madrid on Sunday night. I watched Real Madrid on Sunday night. And people who know Zidane, they don't know anything about that link. He doesn't speak English. If you were Zidane and you just won 3 consecutive European Cups, the last thing I'd want to do is walk into Manchester United. But then maybe he would see that as a challenge. But I'm getting well ahead of myself here. At this moment, I don't think there's any intention from the club to sack José Mourinho.
I'm not sure if you saw it last night, Andy, but beIN Sports were at it again. Andy Gray suggested Roberto Martinez should come in and manage Manchester United.
I don't think Andy Gray's in touch with what's going on like he was. I think it's easy to sit out there in Qatar and talk about your old mates and say who you think would be good. I mean, Martinez, I do actually respect him. I wrote a big piece about him in the summer. I knew him. My uncle was his kitman at Wigan, so I knew what was going on there and what a sharp operator he was. And I spoke to his assistant manager. I spoke to people who work with him very closely, and he's done very well with Belgium. But I don't think there's any clamour for Roberto Martinez to come in to manage at Manchester United, even though he still lives in Greater Manchester. He's rebuilding his reputation, and I think that he damaged it a lot at Everton. He was very, very unpopular by the time that he left Everton. I'm not sure that he's top level.
Isn't the real problem here that Ed Woodward is making football decisions and is briefing at various stages about why he's making those decisions directly to journalists, and that is not a power system within a football club that we've seen work anywhere else, where the finance guy makes football decisions and seems to be the ultimate arbiter of transfer policy?
That is a problem. You're absolutely right. I know an agent who's got some very high-profile players, and he met Manchester United and Manchester City in March of this year when both clubs were talking about their summer transfer targets. And he said United were so far behind City in terms of the clarity in decision-making and strategy that the two clubs had going forward. United were like, we think this Galactico system is the one which wins European Cups. If you've got 5 Galacticos, then you're going to win the European Cup. And I thought, where is this coming from? Because it's not a Mourinho comment at all. And yet it's been reflected in transfer policy. The last big signing was Alexis Sanchez. And there are probably 5 top class players at United in theory. We're not seeing the reality at the moment. I spoke to Brian McAteer, who's a bright man. And he said Ed Woodward has always wanted this sporting director position. I think Ed Woodward is very, very good at bringing money into the club. He's got a lot of qualities. He's very amenable. I don't think he did any fresh briefings last week. I saw the Guardian story. I know that United fans were saying this has just come straight out of Ed Woodward. The briefings are not good, but then when your manager's sitting there and being so negative, I would be tempted to put the club's version of events too. And they do have a version of events. Victor Lindelof and Eric Bailly were signed by José Mourinho. They cost £30 million each. The club could argue, and have done, that they have backed their manager. This isn't clear cut. This isn't Mourinho has been an absolute failure here, or Woodward has been a complete failure here. There's got to be collective responsibility. And it's unedifying when you're seeing different parts of the club, including Paul Pogba, sending out different messages. There doesn't appear to be unity here. You once had that axis of power between Ferguson and David Gill, where they might fight like cats and dogs in private, but publicly they were unified and they set the tone. And there's 3 different tones being set here coming out of Manchester United, and that is not good. And does Ed Woodward, would he know who the best left back is in Portugal, like a real sporting director would? I'm not convinced that he would. He takes advice in from lots of different people, and he weighs up that advice from different people. But if you look at Bergerstein at Manchester City, I saw him in Girona on Sunday night. He's doing a completely different job to what Ed Woodward is doing, and he's doing it well.
So there were some names linked with that sporting director position. Is appointing a sporting director now, is that the red rag to a bull that people assume it would be to José Mourinho? Like, is there a bit of constructive dismissal going on if they make that appointment? Is there a way to work this out basically and find an intermediary who sits and says, look, José, we will get you a new centre back, but you need to give us better examples than the ones that you've already brought us, and you need to coach the players that you already have and make them better players, so that if we do invest 50 million, we understand that we're going to get somebody who you're going to turn into a better player, somebody who has the credibility to sit across from Mourinho and have that conversation with him.
Yeah, that is likely to be the person that's needed, because if you leave it up to Mourinho, he'll just sign Fabio Contrao every single year for the next 5 years, and a team of 29-year-olds who fit the Mourinho type of player. I've seen the names linked with it. I looked into them. I don't think there's anything beyond the Monchi was good at Sevilla and would be good fit for this. I wrote the story originally in December last year. I can remember getting a tip-off on the way to Bâle and checking it out, and the title of the job then was Director of Football Operations. It had no influence in transfer making. It was just to reflect the increasing role at a growing football club like Manchester United. That has since changed. They're now looking at a proper sporting director. And that person would need to work very closely with Woodward and Mourinho, and would need to have the power to push back, as you say, against Mourinho and say, no, the left back at Bâle is better than the one you're suggesting in Porto. And I think that would be welcomed if the person was able to do that job. But, United fans are also clutching at straws there. They've never had that model in the club's entire history. They're just worried that football decisions are being made not by football men, but by former bankers.
Just one last quick one, Andy, just in terms of that press conference last night, which is obviously going to go down in infamy, and also the Jeff Shreves interview on Sky Sports afterwards, where he said that Manchester United fans don't read newspapers, they don't watch television or anything like that. The obvious comparison straight away was with Donald Trump's media dealings. Is this the first time we've seen this from José Mourinho, or kind of more appropriately, is this the most intense sort of media paranoia we've seen from José Mourinho? Well, he's wrong, because Manchester United fans are avid consumers of the media, and that is why Manchester United stories often come out top of the most popular stories across publications. It's why I'm speaking to you right now at short notice. It's why when I opened my emails an hour ago, I've got 6 different requests for articles that I'm not going to be able to write. If I was writing about Rochdale, I doubt there would be the same demand there. The fans do read what's going on because it keeps me in a full-time living. They absolutely do. And what Mourinho's point might be is that some of the tabloid press might take a line and spin it, or go very tabloid on it. And there might be a counter-argument to that. And José Mourinho has not always been putting his side of the argument across. But he has had time to do that. He's had time pre-season to say, even to put the media as the enemy, and to say, the fans need to be with me, we will get it right. It's going to take some time. We've got a big gap to close here. We've got some problems here. And he chose not to do that. He chose to truncate his press conferences just to say, no, 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 no. And he set the mood going into this season. And it was too late when, a few days after the Leicester game, he did a few interviews where he said, everything's great, Paul Pogba's been fantastic, everything's wonderful here. It was too late because fans just didn't buy it.
Andy, we'll let you go and write some of those articles. Thanks a million for making the time for us this morning, and I'm sorry for your troubles.
I've got no troubles. This is it's not a real issue. Thanks for having me.
Good luck, Andy. Thanks a million. United We Stand is the organisation. Obviously, it's much more than a fanzine these days, but you should check it out if you want to read any more of Andy's stuff, and of course also on ESPN and loads of other places too. A massive response to this from the Manchester United fans. Also some mildly breaking GAA news this morning. It's been tweeted from Offaly_GAA, which says official Offaly GAA. It doesn't have the blue tick on it, but it does look like it's the official Offaly Twitter account. And it says, recommendation from the football committee: Tommy Byrne, Pádraig Pearse, Vinnie Claffey and Eddie Fleming. John Maughan, Offaly football manager 2019.
Right, very interesting. Wow.
Back in the game.
That's
short shorts, permatan.
That's not something we saw coming. John Maughan getting back into the game. Obviously, Paul Rouse stepped away. He said he had his one summer and that was it, done, and decided that he was going to lead. Like, Maughan, kind of, what's he been doing for the last while? I wonder. Just kind of taking it easy, watching Mayo go from strength to strength, get so close to taking down the beast that is Dublin, and decided he needed to get back in there. Maybe he could take down Dublin in a couple of years' time.
Do you think if he'd known the Mayo gig was coming up, he would have waited just another couple of weeks and gone, balls?
I don't think so. I don't think the Mayo County Board would have considered John Maughan for the role. I think they're going to have to go for somebody kind of like where Horn and Rochford came from, somebody who hasn't been tainted with big losses before or anything like that.
Well, let's move on to the Mayo story. Mike Finnerty is on the line. Good morning to you, Mike. How are you doing?
Morning, Ger. How are things?
Just a quick, immediate reaction to the John Maughan news. A fifth county for John?
Yeah, I'd love to know what the guys in Laherdawn GA Club make of it. John has been managing Laherdawn for the last 2 seasons, won a county junior title with them last year, an historic county junior title. He was actually on the sideline with them on Sunday as well in the intermediate championship down here. So I'm sure knowing John, he had everybody in the loop, and they know exactly what the crack is. But I had heard he was in the mix for a couple of jobs in the Midlands. All right, can't see him being in the frame for the Mayo job. I actually spoke to him a few weeks ago, shortly after Mayo lost to Kildare, and we did a piece about Stephen Rochford's coming back or his intentions, and John ruled himself out fairly emphatically at that stage of ever going back into the Mayo job. He's done it a few times, and I think that ship has sailed.
Well, that's fair enough, really. Can we just ask a couple of basic questions that the rest of the country probably don't fully understand the currents of the Mayo County Board? Are the current people who are in charge of football in Mayo at county board level the same people generally who would have been in charge when James Horan was there, or has a new executive come in the meantime?
There would be quite a few changes, but at the same time there would be some people from that time still involved at one level or another. There obviously is a new county chairman, a new county secretary. The treasurer now would have held a number of other positions in the past, and would have been involved during James's time at one stage. The executive tends to change, or in some cases move around as well. So it's a kind of a mixture of some new faces and some of the old faces as well.
So is James Horan a strong possibility for the job at this point, or given that there was it seemed like there was tension at the end of his time with the county board, has there been enough change basically for everybody to kind of say, look, we can draw a line under that and move on, or is there too many of the same faces around for that to be a comfortable marriage into the future?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, and one of the big questions that I think you're going to see teased out over the next few weeks, because obviously James has been linked with the job straight away. No real surprise. He's obviously managing Westport at the moment. They've got a lot of the Mayo under-20s involved. Lee Keegan and Kevin Kane play with them as well. They've been going very well in the senior championship and the league as well. They're up near the top of Division 2, and James obviously has never made any secret of the fact that he'd like to manage Mayo again at some stage in the future. But whether or not the county board and James would be able to work together in 2019, it's impossible to say. That there obviously is a bit of history there, and while there would have been quite a few, the individuals would have changed since he left at the end of 2014, there is still a connection there at county board level, and nobody knows for sure, I suppose, just how well or how badly they actually got on, or how that parting of the ways actually happened in great detail. But I see already he's among the favourites for the job. But whether or not he's actually interested in it at this stage, again, it's well known. He's got a lot of media commitments. He's got a young family. He's got a very busy job. And he's only just started this project in Westport as well, which I suppose anybody who's plugged into Mayo football will know they are the coming club now. They've swept the board at underage level. They're winning 8 championships, hand over fist, and they really are building something. And they are really gunning for a first McAteer Cup as well. So whether James Horan throws his hat in the ring, it remains to be seen. But if he doesn't, that shortlist, I think, is pretty short. There's no obvious candidate, I think it's fair to say at this stage, jumping off the page.
You mentioned there that we weren't quite privy to all the information regarding what happened with James Horan and the county board at that time, but it is like it's almost 4 years now at this point since James Horan did leave his post as Mayo senior manager. What were the details we did know at the time? What was the exact division, to the extent of your knowledge, that happened there between James Horan and the Mayo County Board?
Well, if memory serves me correct, it was really speculation at the time that James's working relationship with the board at that stage, or certainly the officers he was dealing with on a regular basis, had become strained. It just wasn't functioning at 100%. James had also given it a few years, and I think the official line at the time was that he felt he needed a break, that the players needed a fresh voice. He brought them as far as he could, but there was that underlying sense, I think, in Mayo that if the working relationship had been firing on all cylinders with the chief officers at the time, he may have been tempted to go again, to give it another shot. But those positions have been filled by different people now. Whether or not the things have moved on enough, or enough water has flowed under the bridge, it's impossible to tell. Because by and large, I think James has pretty much kept his counsel on it over the years. He hasn't got into it in huge detail, and maybe there is a blank page there. Maybe the time is right, but I just have a feeling as well. There's such a big project on in Westport, and it's such an ambitious club that that's going to be a big consideration for him as well.
Can we just go back to the events of the last 48 hours or so? What we know, and you can correct me as I go along here. So. Stephen Rochford put forward a couple of names to join his backroom team to the county board. The county board didn't immediately ratify those. There was no actual meeting between Stephen and the county board, but the fact that they didn't ratify that immediately and called him to a meeting seems to have been the straw that broke the camel's back in that relationship. Is that a fair summation of what's happened?
Yeah, I would think so, and I think you're right in saying the straw that broke the camel's back, because over the last 3, 4, 5 weeks there have been a number of sort of points along the way where you just wondered what way the wind was blowing. I mean, maybe a month ago, before Stephen Rochford had spoken to the county chairman or to any of the senior officials, you had an interview in a local paper down here where the county chairman expressed the view that he felt the backroom team needed to be freshened up, the squad needed to be freshened up, and that there was remedial action needed on a number of different fronts, and that struck a lot of people down here as strange, that would appear in print before a conversation had taken place with the manager. And then also, once Stephen Rochford a few weeks ago confirmed his intention to stay on, again, it would have struck a lot of us as odd that there was no official endorsement of Stephen coming back as Mayo manager by any of the senior officials. And again, last week's county board meeting, last Thursday night, a deadline of this coming Friday was put down as being the deadline that Stephen Rochford would have to have his management team in and on a sheet of paper. And again, that seemed, considering a month went by after the Kildare game before anybody spoke to Stephen Rochford, and then all of a sudden the 31st of August was imposed as a deadline for having his management team in order. You consider Mayo were obviously out of the championship. They don't play a game again until the 1st of January. That seemed an unnecessary hurdle to put in front of him. But at the same time, he did get that management team put together. He informed the county board chairman on Saturday of the names he had on a sheet of paper, and a decision was taken to hold an executive meeting on Sunday evening. Now, I am reliably informed that certain members of the executive were not happy that those two names, the names of Peter Ford and Shane Conway, were in the public domain on Saturday evening, Saturday night. And obviously, we broke the news on mayonews.ie Saturday night that Peter Ford and Shane Conway were coming on board. But the reality is those names were in the public domain on Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening. There were club championship games being played all across the county. And news travels fast. And in the current age of WhatsApp and social media, those names were always going to get out there. And once they did, and that news started to travel, the whole thing started to pick up momentum. And I just get the sense that some members of the executive weren't happy that those names were in the public domain, and that obviously some of them may have found it out second hand.
Last question for you.
That could have been an issue.
Last question for you, Mike. Was it the fact that they're the current managers of Brafey, and there is this fear within Mayo football that Brafey has become too powerful? That's code for it, that the O'Sheas are too powerful at the moment. And that is the story that has been doing the round. So if you want to just kill that myth for us, it might be no harm.
Yeah, I was just saying to Tommy there off air a few minutes ago, I mean, there are a few myths doing the rounds about Mayo football over the last few years, particularly since the heave in 2015. And one of them is that in some way Brafey GAA club exert a huge influence over Mayo GAA affairs, and in particular the Mayo senior team. Now, I've been covering Mayo GAA for a long, long time, and I'd like to think I've got a fairly good handle on it, and that nothing could be further from the truth. Peter Ford is a Ballinrobe man. Shane Conway was born in England. He lives in Ball. He's got no connection with Brafey other than he's the joint manager of the Brafey senior team with Peter Ford. They've been there the last couple of years. And, you know, this myth that in some way the Brafey players exert an influence over the manager or had some role in the picking of the last manager or in who goes in on backroom teams, I think it suits the conspiracy theorists, and it's a convenient truth for people who want to maybe use a stick to beat Mayo football. But anybody who knows Stephen Rochford will tell you he's his own man. He showed that last night, I think, with the manner in which he dealt with this situation and in his statement. And certainly it's not fair on the Brafey club, and it's not fair either on the O'Sheas and Rob Henley and guys like this that all they want to do is play football for their county and just get back to the business of playing matches again. Mike, great stuff. Thanks very much for joining us this morning. That's Mike Finnerty there. You can read more about that on mayonews.ie, as he said. And so the Shakespearean drama that is Mayo football continues to leave some bodies on the floor.
Yeah, it's the Shakespearean drama with a lot of Shakespearean rumours doing the rounds as well, as in certain factions fighting against other factions, despite the fact that there's clearly no reason for these factions to ever be in a rivalry, considering some of the things they've gone through as teammates and as people who've almost taken down one of the greatest teams we've ever seen. But ultimately there is clearly a soap opera at play here that the Mayo County Board just weren't having whatever Stephen Rochford brought to the table. And I'd love to know what it is. We don't know what it is. Rochford kind of made the first play when it came to making this thing public. So you would assume that whatever it is, Stephen Rochford feels pretty badly aggrieved here.
Yeah, and look, the Mayo County Board are going to have to somehow restore their credibility in the eyes of the Mayo football public. And that's going to be a difficult job for them to do because they're coming from a bit behind. Let's move on. We want to bring you the end of a story that we've been covering all week. It is the World Cup of Irish Sports Endorsements. Here is the winning entry. Have a look.
I can't believe we did it. McAteer with a cross. And there's the goal. Ireland took their place in the last 16. Yes! It's goodbye Spain! Hello Argentina! Robbie Keane has put Ireland into the semi-final against England. Heart to send England home. I fell asleep amid the flowers. An entire nation waits. McAteer, still McAteer. And McAteer has done it! Brazil 0, Ireland 1! The Republic of Ireland has won the World Cup. They said it was impossible, but nobody told Jason McAteer.
Carlsberg don't do dreams, but if we did, they would probably be the best dreams in the world.
All right, I'm delighted to say we've got with us the winning director and the winning star of the winning ad, Jason McAteer and Lenny Abrahamson. Good morning to you folks. How are you doing?
How are you?
Jason, I don't know how much you remember about this ad, but like, it was a cultural phenomenon when it came out because it was pre-Saipan and we all had the unbelievable surge of confidence. What is your recollection of actually making this thing?
It was an advert for the World Cup. You know, you have a players' pool when you get to the World Cup, and the lads get selected to do different things, and then all the money that's paid sort of goes into the pool, and then it's divvied up amongst all the staff and the players. So it was a no-brainer really, and obviously I knew that the Carlsberg ads through the if they made, you know, whatever they made, it'd be the best in the world, whatever it was. And you know, when I was approached to do sort of a poster campaign, they threw a TV advert in as well. And you know, I used to love doing things like that. It was always a great buzz. It was, you always meet great people, and I really enjoyed doing it. And I was quite surprised actually that, you know, it's just been running that in Ireland, that the fact it's the best advert in Ireland, sports advert, but I actually think it's one of the best in the world. I know I can be biased, but
yeah,
I think it was absolutely fantastically done, and I just loved every minute of doing it.
Yeah, because it predates like the ability to kind of magic everything up through CGI. Lenny Abrahamson, good morning to you. How you doing?
Great, nice to be here.
So, what's your recollection of 16 years ago and this entire ad campaign?
Yeah, I like Jason. I have lovely memories of it because it was the first like ad that I did. I mean, I was fairly new to the whole thing, and I'd been making some ads for a while. So this was much higher profile than anything I'd done before, and it was a lovely idea from Alan Kelly, who's a great copywriter, and his idea originally was that we'd recolor the shirts, and it would just be footage of the games with commentary. But myself and Johnny Spears, the producer, we just came up with this idea that what about, you know, sort of recreating the montage that would have been made post-win. You know, that this was the experience we all had cut. And it was just really great fun to do. It was lovely to work with Jason, who was a total pleasure. And then afterwards, I remember being in a pub, and a really noisy pub, and the telly was on in the background, and the ad came on, and everybody was hushing everybody else, and which I'd never seen before, and so it's probably my first taste of doing something that had you know, that kind of reaction. So it was a brilliant buzz.
Yeah, I also couldn't help but notice. Is it Tom Murphy and Mark O'Halloran actually in the ad?
Yeah, so we were talking about Adam and Paul when that ad was made, and so I asked the lads would they do it? Would they, you know, come in and be in this scene? And actually, Tom Murphy, you know, the late and amazing Tom Murphy, I think that shot of him reacting is probably the best ever fan reaction shot. You know, it's just fantastic. What makes the ad, that kind of like his head's about to explode with, you know, just the kind of joy that you can only get from a victory like that. So yeah, the lads, it adds a certain, you know, thing for me anyway to see the two of them together, and particularly Tom.
Yeah. Oh, it's class. Jason, do you remember actually seeing it for the very first time? Do you actually remember that kind of sense of, hang on a second, this is amazing?
Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky enough to do a couple of ads in my time, and as you know, and some of them haven't been great, and others have been okay. But you never really know until you see the final thing, and usually you just see it when it comes on the telly, or so you don't get sense of it really, and so you're just waiting in anticipation really to have a look at it. And you know, sometimes I'm a little bit disappointed the way it comes out, but I just remember thinking, because the music was quite iconic at the time, the song as well was quite iconic, so it all just sort of flowed together. And obviously I was quite involved in the whole Carlsberg campaign, because we've done a poster campaign where I'm actually putting the shirts out of all the teams that I'd swapped shirts of all the teams we played to get to the final. I think I've got the Brazil one in my hand. I'm just about to put it up on the washing line in the garden at home. And then there's another one that they changed, I think, O'Connell Street to McAteer Street. And I'm sort of putting up there's a builder putting up the sign in the street. So it was a really good campaign. But the TV advert just topped it off. I just thought it was absolutely amazing, and I was a little bit disappointed I never went on to bigger things from that perspective. But it was an amazing advert. It was a great thing to work with.
We obviously did this in kind of a World Cup format, Jason, to try and determine the best Irish sporting ad ever, and I regret to inform you that your Wash and Go ad only got to the last 16 stage and then got knocked out.
Yeah, that was one of the ones I was alluding to before. That some just ain't safe. Some carry the test of time, don't they, and become quite iconic, like the Carlsberg ad. But the Wash and Go can slip away. To be honest, I'm not really too bothered about that.
Lenny, how do you pick Jason, or how does that work? What's that process like?
Well, Jason, he was sort of one of the big players of that era, and also photogenic, and so he was the name at the beginning, from the beginning when we talked to the agency. So it was great that he agreed to do it. And I think we shot it we actually used a hotel room, I think, in Dublin to mirror to pretend that it was his bedroom, but he didn't know really. It's the thing. I think anybody in an ad never really knows how the rest of it's going to be. So, but he was great, easy to work with, good laugh, and it was a good choice, as it proved later on.
I had no idea that you could colour shirts until we saw that happening. Like, that's kind of, it seems ridiculous now to look back on how CGI has transformed everybody's cinema experience. But was that a ridiculously ambitious thing at the time as well?
Oh yeah, it was what we're going to do is we're going to actually take the shirts of other teams and turn them green, and it's like. Yeah, it felt like we were sort of, on the cutting edge of CG, and it took a lot of work to do it. And now things have in 16 years, things have totally transformed. But it just shows you, you just need a really good idea. It's always the idea, it's always the story. And, that one little flip was all that was necessary to make the thing work.
One last thing, a lot of people kind of tend to look down on ads as kind of not this particularly important cultural phenomenon, but actually they really are. Stuff like this kind of certainly captured the whole build-up to the pre-Saipan element of 2002, and kind of, I don't know if it just reminded us all about what was coming. I don't know how you feel about ads, and as somebody who makes art now, that's your living, your job, and your calling in life is to make art. But this ad seems to have been kind of important as a staging post along the way.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I wouldn't have, even just in lots of ways. For me, I met Johnny, who was the producer of Adam and Paul, through doing commercials. I learned an awful lot of craft through doing them. You learn a kind of discipline, I think. You've got to tell the story in a certain amount of time. You've got to work with people who are on the money side. And for me, it was a really good training. And you're right, there's an awful lot of dross, but there's an awful lot of dross in feature filmmaking as well. So no, I'm really grateful to commercials. They were a big part of what helped me get going and paid the bills for a long time as well. So, and there are some extraordinary ones, and there are some really brilliant people make them, and there are a lot of directors who make them that you don't know make them either. Keep it quite quiet, but who operate in that sphere as well. And so I think I would never diss them.
Ultimately as well, when it comes to commercials, it's the regularity with which we were all watching them, so it becomes almost an implicit part of all of our lives back then, and therefore gives us pangs of nostalgia when we watch it back. Jason, I'm not sure, did you get kind of a twinge of nostalgia when you were watching that ad back this week?
Yeah, I've got to be honest, it's not the first time I've watched it this year. I do like bumping to my mates and stuff, and it does pop up now and again when we're talking about it, because it's accessible everywhere, isn't it, on the internet, so you can easily get it. So it is something that I'm quite proud of, actually. And I've got a room in the house with shirts up and stuff, and the actual poster campaign is actually up in my room. So it brings back great memories. But it's just, I was just listening to what you're saying about adverts. From a sportsman's point of view, it was kind of around the mid-90s when it was sort of just creeping in. There was more pages to fill, and footballers were becoming more like film stars, really, around that time. Adverts weren't really the acceptable thing to do, and I remember you mentioned the Wash and Go one. I got quite a bit of criticism over that, sort of in the game and fans as well. You're taking your eye off the ball, you're not really concentrating on your football, you're too busy doing this and doing that, and doing adverts and stuff. But now it's just second nature, and it's something that, working with sort of Liverpool now and sort of as an ambassador and going around the world, you see the first team doing different campaigns and stuff. It's massive in the sense of bringing sort of money into football clubs, and it's a massive bartering tool, and it's become part and parcel of the game. And it's so powerful But back then, it kind of wasn't. Sort of the Carlsberg around 2002, it was more acceptable sort of to do these kind of things, and along with the World Cup as well, it was much more acceptable to do. But it's such a powerful tool to use an advert and get a message across.
Yeah, no, it totally works. Lads, great stuff. Thanks very much for joining us this morning. Lenny, great to talk to you again. And Jason, just before I let you go, Jason, I wanted to ask you about the Declan Rice situation. Obviously, it's emerged in the last 24 hours that it looks like England have made their play for him and he's had his head turned. What do you make of this?
Disappointed when I seen it. Obviously seen the fallout last night and Kev's comments on your off the ball stuff, and I agree with Kev. You know, I obviously it's a similar situation. I grew up in England, but I was always an Ireland fan. My grandfather, as you know, was born in Ireland, and sort of when I was a barman when I was watching the 1990 World Cup and become a thick fan of Irish football and the iconic players, and loved everything they did. And you know, if I could have become a professional footballer, that's the country I wanted to play for. That's who I wanted to play for, and it never changed. And I was lucky enough to make the grade. I was lucky enough to be asked to play for Ireland, and I jumped at the opportunity. I was asked to play for England before Jack Charlton asked me to play against Russia in my first game, and you know, I held out, and I let the FAI know that I wanted to play for Ireland, and Jack came along to one of the games and asked me to play, and I jumped at the opportunity, and the rest is history. But as for Declan, you know, he's tasted the Irish setup. You know, he's played a few games. He's a great talent, and he's someone that I think Irish football needs to come through. He would play a lot of football. He would enjoy his time doing that. I'm just disappointed that he's able to give the opportunity. I think the rule needs to change. You know, a non-competitive game gives you the opportunity then to change country. I don't think that's right. I think once you've chosen your allegiance to your country, then that's it. You go with it. I just don't know why he would want. From a footballing point of view, I understand it, but you've got to have this sense of worth and what you're doing for your country, and you've got to feel a part of it. And I certainly did from the minute I joined up, and you know, certainly wanted to support Ireland. It was a great time for me, and playing for him was the best 12 years of my life, to be honest. But I'm just slightly disappointed that his head's been swayed and he wants to maybe take the opportunity to join England. Disappointed.
Jason, great stuff. Thanks very much for joining us this morning, and congratulations on winning the greatest Irish sports ad of all time.
It was never in doubt, was it?
No, never in doubt. Good stuff. Take care. Thanks a million.
Cheers. Take care.
So Jason McAteer there, accepting his prize with good grace.
Proudest moment of his career. There's a lot of people who've never claimed that award. Rory McIlroy's never claimed the award. Patrick Harrington obviously came so close.
Are there any?
Well, himself and Tiger on the driving range.
No. Is it good?
When they both signed up for Nike, when Rory signed up for Nike,
is that like a 5-minute long thing, or is there?
Yeah, they kind of like are they off the tee and trying to get into a basket, and it's kind of like when you say "hold my beer," it was very much a hold my beer sort of video. It was like, oh, I see what you're doing there, Tiger. We'll watch this sort of thing. Yeah, so like you think of all the great Irish sports people that have never done it, and Jason McAteer up there on his accolade. I hope it gets added to his Wikipedia page actually in terms of career and honours.
If only we could just do that ourselves. Isn't that how Wikipedia works? You just go and you... yeah, okay. And also, like, you know, I don't know if everybody's seen Adam and Paul, but it's like one of the greatest Irish films of all time. And the fact that we have this thing which is made by Lenny, who's like also a genius, and we win the World Cup, and it's this very lucky, fortuitous, serendipitous moment in Irish sports ads history.
It's weird. The thing is entirely based on a work of fiction, but there's almost an element of a time capsule about it. It's weird how he managed to capture reality through a complete work of fiction.
Yeah, and also just like that whole thing went tits up because of Saipan as well. Like, you know, we qualified for that World Cup 10 days before September 11. It was like this kind of perfect 10 days of Irish life. And then after that, the world changed and things weren't as straightforward and as crack anymore.
No, they weren't as rosy. And yeah, they should do kind of like a reimagined version of it with Saipan, or kind of what would have happened. Like maybe kind of a reprise of the Carlsberg ad with what would have happened if Saipan didn't happen.
Let's go back to Declan Rice and the big story of the last 24 hours in Irish football. Here's a quick reminder of Kevin Caban's thoughts on the Declan Rice situation.
Martin O'Neill, you got to applaud him for this, because many manager would have come out and just told a line of, you know, Declan's injured, he's not quite right. That's what would have been said by most managers. So he's come out today and he said, well, look, this is what I'm dealing with here. England have been in touch, and we've got to respect his decision for that. Personally, I know I'm certainly, you know, agents accused me in the past of maybe tweeting to get likes and all this sort of crap, but that's not the case at all. Honestly, genuinely with this, I feel as though that he's turned his head. He's had his head turned. Why on earth play for us in the first place to then consider going to play for a different country? Yeah, that's what I genuinely feel with it. And personally, if he's called back into the squad, or if he were then to change his mind and think, I'm going to go, what does that say to the rest of the lads? What does that say to young kids growing up, that you can actually, you know, you're aspiring to be a Declan Rice, you're aspiring to be, you know, if you're English born, you're aspiring to be Declan Rice, that you've got pride in playing for Ireland, then all of a sudden, nah, I could actually go and play for someone else as well, or a young boy's over here in Ireland that's growing up, and they're listening tonight, or they're seeing what Declan Rice is doing. What's that saying to them? They're coming through a system where someone's taken 3 caps off an Irishman. That's the way that I'd look at it. You've taken 3 caps off someone here, and you shouldn't have been involved in the first place if you're actually going to make this decision further down the line.
Okay, so that was Cow speaking on the show last night. We just want to play some of this. This is Roy Keane speaking about Declan Rice being Irish in May.
Can I ask you how surprised you were to hear David Gold challenge Manuel Pellegrini to turn Declan Rice into an England international?
Well, it's going to be pretty difficult if he's Irish. And he is Irish. And plays for Ireland, yeah.
And he's given every indication that Ireland is where he wants to play.
Yeah, because he's Irish. Yeah. Where else would he want to go? If you had a choice, Ireland or England. Pretty straightforward, isn't it? Ireland.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
I don't know. I think he's right.
Oh, David Gold is coming out of this looking like a supervillain, isn't he?
Well, he is a supervillain. My hope all along, it's one word, has been that Declan first becomes an England player and then follows in the footsteps of the great Bobby Moore by becoming the captain of England and making me rich. Oh, sorry, I added that bit. Richer. I should have corrected it. Born in England, made in West Ham United. DG, what a wanker.
Who's the guy that persuades Anakin Skywalker to eventually turn into Darth Vader? That guy in the hood? That's what David Gold is.
Darth Maul?
No, Darth Maul gets killed after...
I don't know. I tuned out like in 1999.
But David Gold, like he's obviously not a great individual anyway, and we should probably be getting angry about other facts of his life, but this is the worst thing David Gold has ever done. Because I didn't actually realise, I completely forgotten in fact, about the previous mention of him in the Declan Rice context, as we just heard there with the reporter speaking to Roy Keane.
Yeah.
Like, are you not a little bit sad? No, like you seem quite cold about it.
Ireland,
like, look,
Azerbaijan under 21. So this is fan footage. That's him there kissing the badge. Come on, super slow mo.
Does that not make you a little bit sad?
He didn't score, and that's him celebrating. So take the emotion out of it.
No, I'm not taking the emotion out of it. It's football. It's not something that you can really kind of...
Well, let me finish the sentence. If you take the emotion out of it and try and see what happened here, like, is this just him having his head turned by a phone call from Gareth Southgate, or is this the club trying to maximise their return on him? Because they sell him next season for 40 million or 60 million if he plays for England. They sell him for like 15 to 12 million if he plays for Ireland.
Well, let me ask you this. When all the transfer rumours were doing the rounds this summer, just gone, about Jack Grealish potentially moving to Tottenham Hotspur for whatever it was, £40 million?
Yeah.
Do you think that was enhanced because he's an Englishman?
Probably, yeah.
Despite the fact that he's never played for England?
It doesn't matter, he will. Like, that's the point. If he goes and joins Spurs, there's no prospect of him playing for Ireland.
The point is that Jack Grealish had an excellent championship season last year and had returned to the form that had brought him into the conversation in the Premier League a couple of years ago.
Yeah, but I think it matters that, like, if you are going to sell season tickets and all that stuff, that you have England's Jack Grealish, like if you're turning him into an international player, which is what the next club will do, right? you're buying him at 40 million on the assumption that he'll go to the Euros or the next World Cup, have a good tournament, and he's then worth 80 million because he's like got that bullshit hype extra price. That's like, the business there isn't just we've got a good championship player, we're turning him into a Champions League player, which it should be, but it isn't.
I think it was the heavy weight of it when it comes to Grealish. That being said, I do admit I'm picking out a very specific example there.
So how much was Richarlison?
50 million.
50?
Yeah, he's being called up to the Brazil squad.
After
he's about to get called up.
After a good season in the Premier League.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Maybe the nationality thing doesn't matter. Like Charlatans were at the moment a good bit ahead of where Grealish is.
Yes, like there's no question about that. He's better
Tommy's
footballer.
saying Brazil are sexy.
Well, the thing is, Richarlison wasn't a Brazil international. He's about to get called up for his debut in a couple of weeks. The idea that he's a young Brazilian kid is kind of like the idea that, you know, the next Neymar, so to speak. There is a glamour to that. There is no question about that. So, like, who can be the next Ronaldo? Is it going to be Gabriel Jesus? Is it going to be Richarlison? Whatever it may be. So of course there's a glamour to that. And I'm not saying that I completely disagree with you, because there is nuance in this. Of course, it's a part of it. I just think you're overplaying it a slight bit at this age.
We're trying to work out exactly how you go from I'm Irish. Here he is. Look, this one. So this is after the game against the USA, Ireland's last match. Here is Declan Rice speaking to Jane Moore.
Did you hear the comments from West Ham that they want you to try or the new manager to make into an England international, and what did you make of it?
No, it was just, you know, he was on TalkSport talking, and it's one of them things, you know, he's just come out and said it. I'm not going to take too much by it, you know, he can say that, obviously that's his opinion, but I'm here tonight, I'm playing for Ireland, and, you know, I've just been focused on doing that, playing in the Turkey and France game.
Yeah, the assistant manager Roy Keane spoke to us during the week, and he said he was very surprised by the comments that you're Irish and you're playing for Ireland, which all of us Irish people were happy to hear. You do see yourself as an Irish international, and hopefully once that competitive debut comes, it'll be the end of the question.
Yeah, I think it was off topic, you know, for him to come out and say that. You know, I did hear Roy's interview the other day, but I don't try to think too much about it. You know, I don't want to take too much pressure onto myself or put pressure on myself. Just want to keep playing, enjoying my football, and playing with a smile on my face, and I think that's the main thing I've got to do.
From the point of view of you as an Ireland player, 3 games in since the Turkey game, you look like you've been playing for a number of years, let alone 3 games. How do you feel you've settled in, because it looks like you've just taken to it really, really well?
Yeah, no, I think it's because I've been around club men football for quite a while now. You know, playing with top players, coming here playing with top players, and you know, it's nice integrating with different types of players, you know, from different teams, and you know, I'm learning off different players and what we can do better and what I can do better individually, and I think that's why on the pitch, you know, I feel so confident, because you know, I believe in my ability to get on the ball and, you know, get us playing.
I mean, obviously I'm going to miss having a ball playing centre back / central midfielder.
The thing that comes straight to mind here, and I'm sure plenty of people have been thinking this over the last 24 hours or so, is that happened in June 2018. Every chance those games in June 2018 should have been World Cup warm-up games. Had we not put in such a poor showing against Denmark, Declan Rice would be an Irishman. This would never be a conversation if he qualified for the World Cup.
Exactly, yeah. So that was a very expensive 5-1 defeat.
Yes, that defeat lost us Declan Rice. That is not the way international football should work.
I mean,
but it is.
It totally is. It totally is.
You have to be some bit demoralised with where we're at in international football for this to be an actual, like, we didn't qualify for World Cup, therefore kid is not Irish.
Yeah,
like that is absolutely ludicrous.
That's how the rules are set up. So here we go. Mel says Declan Rice should make the best decision for himself and consider no one else. That's football these days. When his sell-by dead arrives, no one will show any allegiance or loyalty to him, which is a fair point. Sean Canning says Caban 100% right. Rice should never have played in senior internationals if he wasn't sure of his allegiances. Also, I think, fair point. Michael Graney says, on the Irish thing, lads, we need to sort our own house out and grow players here. Hashtag OTBAM.
Well, there's no question about that.
Also 100% right. Kigarino. Kigarino. Lads, it's a business. There's more money in an English jersey than an Irish jersey. Stop being so naive about loyalty to a country you weren't born in and have minimal connection to. He doesn't want it. Can understand that too. Andrew Fox says, why would Rice choose Ireland? What does he have to gain with England? If he gets the call-up, he might reach a World Cup semi-final or final of the Euros.
Yes, but that's not what Kevin Kilban's point is. His point is that he did it underage. Why play for it underage? Why kiss the badge if you don't feel... Like, what's with the full loyalty?
Kiss the badge, whatever. Don't play for the senior team. Don't play for the senior team. Don't say, yeah, I'm playing for the senior team.
Yeah.
That's the... once you play international football at senior level, even if a friendly, you should be it. Rice's situation is worse than Grealish, who never played senior. What makes it more disappointing? Rice looked like our future captain.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean,
worse
like,
than Grealish.
if this was a no-mark player who was like, oh, I really think I'm going to make it for Northern Ireland or Wales or somebody, would be like, all right, off you go. But this is like somebody who's good, and that's why we care about it so much.
And that's why there's double standards on our part as well.
Totally, yeah. I mean, nobody comes out of this smelling nice. Alan Cooley says, lads, are you going to be talking about Mayo all morning? Last week it was the Mayo ladies. Any chance you could talk about the All-Ireland football final on Sunday? Well, yes. We did have we've got a great piece already recorded with Barney Rockin and McGinley, which we'll bring you tomorrow. But there was just enough news yesterday to fill today's show. We've got Mossy Quinn on Friday for you in studio as well. Eamon Fitzmaurice is going to join us on Thursday to tell us how to beat the Dubs and what his master plan would have been this year, if only they could have got the opportunity to reveal it to us. Once you play international football at senior level, even if Rice situation did that one, sorry, yeah. Even more delighted with the tickets to Thursday's gig now, says Dara O'Toole. Good point, Dara. It now looks like one of the best planned lineups in the history of live outside broadcasts, and that was always our intention. I'm not going to tell you that it was a complete fluke that we booked the best guests that you could possibly have 4 days out from the All-Ireland final. Aidan O'Shea, Peter Canavan, Kieran McGeady, Cor Staunton, Jim McGuinness, James Horan and Keith Barr.
It's kind of like booking Big Shaq for a music festival before he released the single Man's Not Hot, and then suddenly he released the single and he went absolutely apeshit, and it's like, well, we've got an absolutely stellar lineup now. This is exactly what's happened here. It's just a pure fluke for Off the Ball bosses, I think.
Give it a gigsy till the end of the season. Give it a gigsy. Anthony Ryan says, with the Rochford, Rice and José stories, will we have to endure another 20 plus minute football final preview saying Dublin will win easily? Not today, Anthony, we'll do that tomorrow. Don't worry, we'll get there. We will definitely give you your Dublin will win easily football final preview a little bit later on in the week as well. Now, there's one last thing that I wanted to bring to your attention. It's a story that flashed up onto my timeline in the last little while, and it's about Gary Mabbutt. Gary Mabbutt has type 1 diabetes and so therefore has little feeling in his feet. Gary Mabbutt, rat ate part of my foot while I slept. This is a story from the 27th of August 2018, so that was from yesterday. I've gone to sleep, and during the night a rat has come into the bedroom, climbed into the bed and has decided to chew on my foot. It's made quite a big hole in my toe, going down to the bone, and ate underneath my foot. Yeah, remember the rat showering that we played?
Yeah, that was kind of funny.
That creeped you out.
Yeah, well, it was a bit creepy.
So Gary Mabbutt was in visiting his daughter, who's working at the Kruger National Park in South Africa, apparently. And she came into his room in the middle of the night and go, oh, I've been bitten. And he's like, you're in Africa, so you think scorpion or snake. And then I looked down and realised, oh, I've also been bitten. The rat had a nice meal and I hadn't been able to feel it.
That's
being in Africa, you think of snakes and scorpions, he said.
Imagine the stories that rat gets to tell to his friends. Mate, remember that Premier League footballer? Or manager?
First Division footballer.
First Division.
Yeah.
I ate some of them.
Gary Mabbutt, a key role in Ray Houghton's headed goal.
Yeah, of course. It just like punted it right up into the air, didn't he?
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Gary.
For Ola to win it, to nod it on. There you go. Look, tickets are nearly sold out for the All-Ireland football final preview in Croke Park on Thursday night. Get on to offtheball.com/tickets if you want tickets. And by now it's too late, but between 7:45 and 9:30 every morning, if you want to just listen to the show, go on to offtheball.com, hit the big play button in the top right hand corner on your phone, and you'll be able to just listen to the audio of the show. Tonight there's an hour-long interview with Martin O'Neill on Off the Ball on the radio. Pádraig Harrington is also going to talk about his near miss at the weekend when he nearly won the Off the Ball World Cup Sporting Endorsements and also finished second at the Czech Open, and we'll get the very latest on the Mayo situation as well. So stay tuned to offtheball.com across the day for further news, analysis and reaction. Ready when you are. Good luck.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products.